Isla Titan, a place abandoned by humans. But the island is not empty. This year, our researchers were the first camera team ever to venture onto this island with the help of drones, and the results are spectacular images. All facts in this series are fictional or based on the game. Our team first encountered a young Tyrannotitan, whose parent had fallen in a recent battle with a Tyrannosaurus. The young Tyrannotitan, whom we named Peter, was still very inexperienced and easily unsettled, especially when shady neighbors were around. With the death of his mother, Peter had lost not only his mother, but also her territory. It was no longer safe for him to stay there. But even the surrounding area didn't seem to offer Peter much cover. He had rarely ventured beyond his mother's territory with her, so everything here seemed new to him. He also lacked any hunting experience, so his chances were far from good, just like this little guy who was being pursued by a young Achillobator. Achillobators learn to be independent at an early age, which makes it easier for them to hunt successfully even when they are young. The sun slowly sinks below the horizon, and with nightfall comes danger. Well-camouflaged hunters such as the Tyrannosaurus also like to hunt at dusk. Most dinosaurs are then already on their way to their sleeping places. And what easier target is there than a dinosaur sleeping as if on a platter? But our young Tyrannotitan is about to thoroughly thwart his hunt. Peter's hasty escape also alerts the two Parasaurolophus. Although they do not immediately spot the clumsy hunter, they follow Peter out of the area on pure instinct and disappear into the thicket. The Tyrannosaurus, which is not nocturnal itself, abandons its hunt, allowing Peter to escape its hungry jaws. In search of a suitable place to sleep, he nevertheless falls back into old patterns. He returns to his mother's old territory. However, her absence has allowed other predators to move in, and a Sarcosuchus is lurking in the adjacent pond. Alerted by the footsteps, the Sarcosuchus turns in Peter's direction, but he leaves the area again, because without his mother, it offers neither protection nor food. Instinctively, his self-preservation drives him on. Peter is an excellent hunter in the forest. His camouflage allows him to blend in with the forest almost effortlessly, especially at night. But Peter is not hunting. He is looking for a safe place to sleep, because as good as his camouflage may be, Tyrannotitan are only active hunters during the day. Their eyes are not suited for hunting in the dark, but as soon as the first rays of sun appear on the horizon, Peter is back on his feet, and this time he is actively searching for prey. He has not eaten since his mother's death, and even though a body will satisfy him for a long time, Peter slowly realizes that he must find food. Tyrannotitan are pure fresh meat eaters, which makes it all the more difficult because hunting is rarely successful, even for an experienced hunter. But as poor as his eyesight may be at night, his hearing is excellent, and Peter sneaks up on this young Gigantoraptor. Tracking and stalking this prey took the whole day, so night is already falling when Peter takes up the chase. Unfortunately, he gives himself away by positioning himself poorly, allowing the Gigantoraptor to get a head start. This is fatal in such a hunt. But the young Gigantoraptor also seems to know this area particularly well, because it simply leads Peter around by the nose, causing him to quickly lose sight of his target. When the sun rises again, Peter sets out on the hunt once more. An Anodontosaurus is eating nearby. A young Utahraptor scurries past, And despite the abundance of prey, there is nothing suitable. The Anodontosaurus is armored like a bank vault, and the Utah is so nimble and fast that hunting it would only weaken Peter further. But a young Tyrannosaurus is also nearby, and although it notices Peter, it cannot escape its fate. Peter gives chase and tries to injure the young Tyrannosaurus so that the final execution would be a mere trifle. But tyrannosaurs of this age are incredibly nimble, and Peter's strength leaves him before he can reach it. Peter slowly realizes that his next hunt must be successful. His energy reserves are dwindling, and he is growing weaker. His steps become increasingly hurried, and he searches desperately for prey, but whether he will succeed is anyone's guess. Meanwhile, a fully grown Pachycephalosaurus observes the scene. There is a lot going on, but the Pachycephalosaurus remains unperturbed. With its keen eyesight and impressive hearing, the Pachycephalosaurus is immune to almost any surprise. Pachycephalosaurs are also extremely good climbers. Similar to mountain goats, they can overcome any obstacle. This makes hunting them all the more difficult. But even a Pachycephalosaurus has to drink at some point, and as soon as it leaves its rock, it too can become prey, especially in such a busy area as this. And so, a fully grown male Utah raptor appears. The Pachycephalosaurus immediately catches his eye, and before it notices the Utah raptor, he strikes with lightning speed. Although Pachycephalosaurus is faster than a Utah raptor, even it cannot do much to counter a surprise attack. But in this case, the Pachycephalosaurus's combat experience pays off. With a well-placed headbutt, it smashes the Utah raptor's skull, sealing its fate. One man's loss is another man's gain, and so a Utaranus makes use of the fresh corpse. This Pachycephalosaurus, whom we call Sheba, is making his way to his cave as quickly as possible. Once night falls, he can no longer rely on his senses, and would therefore be an easy target. Suddenly, a Styracosaurus, whom we have named Spike, joins him. In fact, these two have probably been together since childhood. However, not everyone enjoys a peaceful night. But the two are safe in their cave. At dawn, two Acrocanthosaurus also set out in search of suitable prey. If a surprise attack were to succeed, the two would also pose a great danger to our pair. But the sun is already rising on the horizon when Sheba and Spike emerge from their hiding place. In contrast to the carnivores, this terrain offers herbivores a generous selection. A Megalania sees it similarly and follows its keen sense of smell towards our unlikely duo. But they have already caught the eye of someone else that the Megalania would be wise not to mess with. Two Carcharodontosaurus begin the hunt, but although they have approached fantastically, their early departure has alerted the pair too soon. The Carcharodontosaurus cannot keep up in terms of speed, so they give up the chase, visibly frustrated. Startled and still alert, the two decide to move to safer ground. And so they seek out the nearest pond, since they were so abruptly interrupted earlier while drinking water. But is the next danger already approaching? A Dimetrodon lurks in the next pond. But these animals do not have particularly keen senses, and so they only notice our two peregrine falcons once they are already on their way into the forest. The Acrocanthosaurus have also found suitable prey, and are busy delivering the final blow to an Eotriceratops. And as the sun slowly sets, and the two drink undisturbed at the water hole, a Eutyrannus appears, a young mother searching for food for her young. But knowing that her brood would be left unprotected, She breaks off the short chase after the threatening gestures. But it remains to be seen whether the young mother can also escape the two Acrocanthosaurus. For Sheba and Spike, however, the night's rest begins again. Not far from their sleeping place, a young Apatosaurus roams around. It seems to have lost its herd, but a young animal crying loudly in the middle of the night attracts hunters. Although this Deinonychus will probably not kill an Apatosaurus, it is still an excellent hunter. Its sharp eyesight is similar to that of today's owls. With a top speed of almost 40 kilometers per hour, or 25 miles per hour, the Deinonychus is a fast and deadly hunter. The sun has not yet fully risen when Spike is disturbed while eating some flowers. Similar to today's mosquitoes, there are dinosaurs that are not to be taken seriously, but are incredibly annoying. And as the sun rises on the horizon, the first hunters set off on the hunt, while others retire for the night. But in such a wild environment, you never know where the next attacker is hiding, or where you can drink in safety, so this young Utah raptor is not the only victim of the day. This Eotriceratops also has great difficulty defending itself against its three attackers. Young Chuanosaurus always hunt in groups and form close family ties. However, the Anodontosaurus, for their part, rarely have anything to worry about. Their thick, scaly, armor-like skin is impervious to teeth or claws. Otherwise, they know how to defend themselves well with their tail clubs, which weigh almost 500 kilograms. The Styracosaurus is also an impressive opponent. A fully grown male weighs almost 2.7 tons. Its horn, which is almost 60 centimeters long, is also a terrifying weapon. Utah raptors, on the other hand, impress with their fantastic night vision and almost silent movement. The nocturnal witchcraft is one of the mysteries of the dinosaur world that has never been explored. 2 days later, the young Apatosaurus is still searching for its herd. Its chances of survival are slim, and if it does not find them again, it will probably not survive the week. As the sun rises on the horizon, Sheba and Spike are on the move again. They watch another fight vigilantly. However, the sounds of the fight also carry the danger of not hearing someone sneaking up on them. A young Sarcosuchus helps itself to the Eotriceratops, killed by the three Yangchuanosaurus, which the oldest of the group immediately stops. This will certainly be a lesson for the young Sarcosuchus. The young are particularly curious and quickly find themselves in danger as a result. But that is the natural selection of things. Finally, the king of the dinosaurs appears and initially focuses his attention on the two Edmontosaurus, but is quickly distracted by the Yangchuanosaurus and their roars. Once again, the Sarcosuchus finds itself in danger. However, the Tyrannosaurus rex is much more preoccupied with negotiating an unofficial peace with the Yangchuanosaurus. Two Quetzalcoatlus nest at the nearby waterhole. This is their first brood, so they are more interested than aggressive when they see Sheba and Spike. Nest building takes priority, so our two friends can move on unmolested. Fighting such a huge opponent would not be a particularly good idea. Quetzalcoatlus are a good 10 meters tall when fully grown and could easily kill both a Pachycephalosaurus and a Styracosaurus, provided they can get hold of them. As Sheba and Spike have strayed relatively far from their regular territory in search of water, they now have to hurry to get back in time. Pachycephalosaurus are territorial, and although Styracosaurus are not, there seems to be a mutual understanding here. On the way, The two recoil in horror when they see a torvo feasting on a tortoise. But as long as he has his prey, he will not chase them. And after careful observation, the two manage to reach their ancestral cave in time. Not far from the cave, we encounter a fully grown female Carnotaurus on the hunt. A concavenator has caught her attention. The young hunter stalks her prey skillfully and shoots out of the undergrowth like lightning. The first hit lands, but the concavenator is no slow dinosaur, reaching speeds of around 40 miles per hour or 65 kilometers per hour, and above all, it is agile. The Carno can use its powerful legs to propel itself forward, but unfortunately, it lacks the necessary agility, and so tries to shield itself on a rock. This seems to work, because apart from many threatening gestures, the concavenator does not dare to come any closer, and finally breaks off the fight. Hungry but alive, the Carnotaurus we have named Taubi makes its way to its sleeping place, but it does not remain undisturbed for long. Under cover of darkness, two Torvosaurus have gone hunting. Taubsi is inconspicuous in the thicket, but she is still alert. When the footsteps fade away, she sneaks back into the thicket. Similar to blackbirds today, Carnotaurus get up before the first light of day. An important day begins for Taubsi because a successful hunt is becoming increasingly urgent. Carnotaurus are nomadic, so their search for food can begin anywhere. This has the disadvantage of not knowing any area particularly well. Meanwhile, two Therizinosaurus are also on their way to find food. Therizinosaurus claws are a good 1 meter long in adult animals, or approximately 3.3 feet. Therizinosaurus itself reaches a height of 9 to 12 meters and weighs between 3 to 6 tons. These massive, heavily armed opponents are not easily attacked. A young Carnotaurus mother with her young finds herself in a predicament not far from the Therizinosaurus. A Yutyrannus has set its sights on her young. The two try to seek shelter in the undergrowth, but the Yutyrannus intensifies its aggression with repeated threatening gestures. The young animal reacts rashly and runs in the opposite direction from its mother. She rushes after it, albeit a few seconds too late. She tries with all her might to stop the Yutyrannus, but despite landing a few hits, it remains focused on the youngster. Normally, Carnotaurus young would retreat in such a situation, but this brave child fights courageously alongside its mother until she actually leaves it behind. Whether the youngster was able to escape is questionable, but our therizinosaurs have one less thing to worry about. Peacefully, they make their way to the nearest berry bush to plunder it. Speaking of food, Pidgey is also looking for food and smells a carcass. In good weather conditions, Carnotaurus can smell dead meat from up to 15 miles, or 24 kilometers, away, accelerating Pidgey to around 30 to 35 miles per hour, which is approximately 48 to 56 kilometers per hour. And her nose did not disappoint her. A delicious carcass lies ready for consumption and has been abandoned. Satisfied, it can now fill its belly. Near the two Therizinosaurus, a group of Carnotaurus has also been successful, but in the form of a successful hunt. And so it seems that everyone is well fed at the moment. That doesn't happen often in nature. Even the very young defend their prey to the death. But Therizinosaurus are herbivores and do not eat meat anyway. As the sun sinks below the horizon again, the diurnal dinosaurs all make their way to their sleeping places. And so this little documentary comes to an end, and I hope you will visit Isla Titan again.